Hey guys, before I get going on this episode, I just want to briefly say a few words about the relief efforts happening in North Carolina and other areas that were affected by Hurricane Helene and what we're about to see with Hurricane Milton in Florida. As many of you know, I live in Southwest Florida and I was here when we took the direct hit from Hurricane Ian. Seeing the devastation was truly sobering. It was heartbreaking, but witnessing communities come together and witnessing strangers help each other in a time of such profound desperation, it was a reminder that although we see so much evil in this world, there remains so much good. The American resolve is still alive, especially in times of need. People will always still step up to help one another. There are many relief efforts on the ground who are relying on their own money and on donations to try and rescue and provide aid to the victims of the hurricane. The economy sucks right now. I know money is tight for many of us, but if you do have the means to donate, please check out a few groups. I want you to check out the Aerial Recovery Group, and I want you to check out Halo Relief. They're both humanitarian groups led by veterans. They're on the ground in North Carolina. They're flying in helicopters to unreachable areas to save people that were decimated by Helene. I'm going to tag their page in a link so you know where to donate. But check out their page to see their efforts. And if you don't have enough money to donate, of course, you can always pray. Thank you for listening and enjoy the episode. Listen up. We are back with another episode of the Construction Mentor Podcast. My name is Ike. I am your host. You can catch this podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and you can catch me on Instagram and TikTok. We have an interesting one today. I was excited to have Aaron on here. Aaron is a project manager for MBA Construction, operating out of the Southeast, but it sounds like he's a little all over the place, which is good. And there's a few things about that opportunity that I want to make sure that young people understand, because that's what we're here to do. We're here to promote the industry. We're here to promote different career paths that really tailor to any kind of lifestyle, but ultimately giving you an above average lifestyle. And I also want to touch on I guess we'll call it a hot topic. I feel kind of weird saying that because I don't want to seem like, I'm enticing or going for clickbait here, but Aaron is connected to Asheville, North Carolina. And I'm sure by now everyone's aware of what's going on in Asheville, not Asheville. And the devastation that's going on over there. I don't think that people really understand how bad it is. I can tell you right now, as somebody that lived through Hurricane Ian in 2022, nationally, it was not covered and it wasn't accurate and it was terribly underreported. And I think the build back for that was going to be 10 years plus, especially since we have more hurricanes coming behind it. But I think you're probably, when you hear what Aaron has to say, you're going to realize that they got at least 10 years to probably get Asheville, North Carolina back on the map. So, Aaron, I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me.
So you work for MBA Construction, which is, I guess, a developer, right?
Yeah. Owner builder, GC. We build apartment complexes all over the country. So we've got the one project in Asheville, North Carolina. We've got one in Bluffton, South Carolina. I just wrapped up one in Port St. Lucie, Florida. So we're kind of all over the place.
And you're basically managing it primarily in front of that beautiful bookcase that you got behind you in Southwest Florida. So you're not actually on site.
That's correct. Yeah. I travel to the site probably once or twice a month. And then our corporate office is in Indianapolis. So I travel there a couple times a month as well.
So what was that project in, or I'd say was, like it's in the past, maybe it is in the past, who knows what's left, but what was that apartment complex like in North Carolina? How many doors, how many buildings? Was it just one?
There's 268 units there. Luckily we were fortunate. I mean, we only had footers poured on 3 of the buildings in the clubhouse. So the project essentially is basically 2 mountainsides with a stream running through the middle of it. So we were fortunate to not have buildings up to get damaged. The site itself received some, obviously flooding, some erosion, but we were lucky at our site to not experience so much damage. But the surrounding area is I mean, it's pretty much destroyed. I mean, it's pretty much gone. There's miles of water line that are missing. The water treatment facility that supplies water to our area in Buncombe County is gone, from what I hear. It's just totally destroyed. So it's going to take a long time for that area to get back online.
And then you were saying power as well, right?
Yeah,
Just
power. I mean, in Florida, we have hurricanes, obviously, so you and I are used to that kind of stuff. We're used to the storm surge, the water that, slowly rises. You have coastal areas that get flooding. But there, with, the several months of rain, the whole area was just totally saturated before this storm event happened. So they were already receiving abnormal amounts of rainfall.
So it's almost like if I were to equate it, like the sponge was already wet and
Exactly.
and a lot more water got poured on it. There was nothing left for the ground to absorb, basically.
Exactly. And then all that water's, coming down out of the mountains too. So it's picking up speed, and it's just like, I'm sure you saw the videos. Everyone's seen, where the water's coming down and just, taking houses out, whole entire houses, electrical poles, not just the lines down, but the poles are missing.
So I got to ask you, as somebody that's, lived through hurricanes, I've lived through hurricanes. We both live in Florida. I know I was looking at the hurricane as like, oh crap, we got to get ready here, but whenever I see it going up into middle America like that, I always think, they're just going to get really wet. So
yeah,
I wouldn't have thought, even as somebody that's been through a hurricane and has had to get job sites ready and really seen the worst, like everything that you just said is something that I saw in Hurricane Ian in Fort Myers Beach in 2022. Power lines gone, took months just to get power up. We had to pay and get boats to get generators and gas out to the beach. Water, not even a thing, right? I mean, the stormwater and sewer water management was a problem for a long time. And clearly that's going to be a problem for a long time there as well. But what was the prep like? I mean, did you have the same perspective I did? Was anybody telling anybody in North Carolina, like, hey, take this very seriously, this is going to be bad?
No, I mean, there was very little prep to our site. I mean, as you know, normally when these storms hit the coast, they deteriorate pretty rapidly, and then as they move into the country, they pretty much break up, and then it's just a rain event. It's not usually that bad. But so there was no real warning for the people of Asheville. There was they knew that they were going to get rain, right? But, and they knew that there'd be some flooding, but they didn't know it was going to be that bad. I mean, the town of Chimney Rock is gone, I believe that the dam by Lake Lure was putting over more water than what flows over Niagara Falls. That is insane.
Especially when you don't know it's coming.
No.
Right. I mean, I think, like, if you think about, construction fails in history, this reminds me of like the Johnstown flood in Pennsylvania in the 1800s, or at the turn of the century, when they basically said to make the dam wider and to reconstruct it so that they could get horse and carriages across for rich people, for like Andrew Carnegie.
Yeah.
And when they were doing it, the dam gave way and the entire town in like 60 seconds was gone, and it killed like 2,000 people or something like that. And like, I know the death count's up there and it's over 200 now, and it's being compared to, the second deadliest hurricane or the first deadliest hurricane in however many decades now. I personally, and I don't know what you're hearing on the ground, if you have any access to anybody on the ground, but I know that the numbers in Hurricane Ian were underreported from everything that I heard from first responders and from people on the ground and people pulling bodies out of the ocean. Have you had any pulse on that, or is there any feeling from anybody on the ground that it's underreported or that it's worse than people think?
Yeah, I think it's grossly underreported. There's still, from what I hear, there's still over 1,000 people that are missing. And I know that the Duke Energy crews I've spoken to them. I mean, they're finding dead bodies, every day, all over the place. I know somebody that's a nurse and a paramedic, or was a paramedic, but is a nurse now. But she was saying that the same thing. Like they're finding people everywhere.
Right.
It's really bad.
Yeah, I think I had a plumber, and I think because of the network, when we're in contract and we know a lot of people and we know a lot of competent people and people that can help. And I had a guy, he was a plumber, and he himself pulled over 30 people out of the water that had passed.
Yeah.
So that's just one, what do they say? Anecdotal example. How has the communication been like with your subs? Because you're remote, but obviously, unless everybody's being flown in to temporarily work on the project, I imagine you're using local guys, right?
Yeah, most of them are local. The only way in and out of Asheville is through 26 right now that I'm aware of. I believe like the top of a mountain slid down over Interstate 40. So that's going to be shut down for some time. I heard reports that the tunnels collapsed, but I don't know if that's true or not. I haven't had that really confirmed, but the communications has been spotty at best. I called everybody on Sunday to try to, just get a head count, make sure everyone's okay, just, kind of get a feel for what's going on and who's going to be operational and when. I got most of them, and then throughout the week, as the cell service gets turned back on in specific areas, I've been getting calls back and emails. So, the project shut down right now, all of this week and probably next week. So we can't resume normal operations until we know that there's emergency services available. We get water back on for our guys that are staying in houses or hotels or apartments, things like that. So, it's going to be some time. We got to get concrete plants up and running. But the thing is like the site contractors, the road builders, concrete companies, they're all working for, the city, the counties. They're trying to get the infrastructure back in place so that, people can just get to a grocery store,
Well, it's like you said, even people don't, it doesn't cross the normal person's mind that to rebuild or to go back, obviously you need power. And if you don't have power lines, you're now pulling new infrastructure. Same thing with concrete. Like even if you want to put a bridge or a tunnel back or a road back, you can't do it without water. So if
Right.
you don't have a water line, if you don't have a water main or that service is gone, you're out of luck. Until you get something going. And I'm sure immediately now, with whether it's a bank or a client or whoever you're working with, force majeure clauses start kicking into effect. And it's just kind of like now it's a game of who's going to pay for it. Right. And how's it going to get paid for any temporary service or even just extending the project and not getting the return on investment for, however long to get, because if you're a developer and you're the owner and the contractor, I'm sure you guys were motivated to get people in there to get a return on the investment. Right.
Yeah.
So that's a total game changer, obviously totally secondary to life and putting the city back in the map. So we don't need to go there, but what has, obviously, when it comes to getting those things back online, 2022, I thought that Florida and Ron DeSantis specifically, and I guess what they've even done for this storm, which is totally just not even on the map compared to what's happening in Asheville. They did a great job at having linemen right away. They had like 42,000 linemen ready to go. Power was up pretty much everywhere within a week, except for on the beach and places that had heavy damage. They had to replace the infrastructure. And then, they had the day after the storm, concrete trucks being shipped on barges out to rebuild bridges. What has the response been like from Asheville or from, the municipality, AHJ, the government, to those things? Because I'm sure you're waiting to hear from them.
Yeah, well, it seems to be pretty decent at the city level. I mean, I get, phone calls every day, like an update from the utility department and from the city, because I'm obviously in their system as a developer. So they're getting messages out that way. I know, speaking of DeSantis, I think he sent like 1,300 feet of temporary like bridge material to Asheville, which was great because people are literally just cut off. So many people have bridges on their regular driveway, just their driveway to get out of their house. There's a bridge with a stream running through it that's no longer there. So there's still a lot of people trapped. Believe it or not, we're a week out, and there's still people that can't get away from their home. They can't get to town.
9 calendar days ago now. And I think he sent up a bunch of cops and ambulances and just all kinds of things to help, because I think we were over prepared. The impact, I think there's some people still without power in Florida, but nobody's dead. I mean, or very few.
Right.
The impact wasn't nearly that of an Ian or Helene in Asheville. So
Right.
that's good to see. I heard reports that actually the first people that people have saw were Florida response teams, and they're like, what the hell? They've gone a week without seeing anybody, and all of a sudden they see a Florida, helicopter or cruiser outside of their house.
Yeah, I mean, I had a friend who was staying at the Grove Park Inn, and one of the interesting things that I didn't think about was, he was at this hotel for 2 days without power, without cell phone reception, no internet, right? So when they were told they had to leave, it was a struggle for him to get out, to get out of town. Obviously, he couldn't make any phone calls. He was just starting to get cell service. I mean, he was calling me that it was pretty spotty, right? But the crazy thing is, when they left, they had no idea, because they were in the dark for 2 days. They had no idea what was going on, like what had happened. They didn't know about all the flooding. They didn't know about the destruction. So their drive from Asheville to South Carolina, they were just like blown away by seeing all this stuff, and he called me and he's like, man, it was like a war zone. We had no idea it was that bad. We're right. Luckily they weren't flooded in the hotel, and I didn't think about that. Like there were a lot of people that, didn't think that, they just had no idea what was going on,
Yeah. I mean, so it's crazy, the comforts of some normal modern society that we have. Constant contact, constant information, which in one sense is poisoning all of us, but in another sense keeps us informed. And when you're in the dark, you have absolutely no idea what's going on. And when these things happen, society collapses and we get primitive really quick, right? Yeah. One of the things that I always say is like, it's funny, when a hurricane comes, I don't see the wives outside putting hurricane shutters on the house. You know what I mean? Like they're inside with the kids and the men are outside doing that, right? But resources matter, and that's what matters. And that's why I think a lot of people are offended by the $750 stipend that people are going to get. Like, how the hell am I going to access my bank account to get that? You're giving that to me in cash, and where the hell am I supposed to go with that cash? Because we don't have any stores. That's maybe right. 1 or 2 nights at a hotel. Like, what am I supposed to do with $750? I need water, I need food, I need a bed. You know what I mean? So it's, as somebody that grew up in the Northeast, I'm not sure where you grew up, but I grew up in Boston. So this has been totally foreign to me. And I wouldn't have the respect or appreciation that I have for it now if had I not gone through Hurricane Ian. Have you always been from Florida?
No, I'm from Ohio, but I've lived in Florida for 16 years now. So,
right. So
I know what you're saying.
No hurricanes in Florida and Ohio. You just have train derailments and explosions and things like that.
Exactly. But like you said, I mean, the $750, it's a joke. I mean, FEMA was saying that they're out of money essentially. And then I heard that they gave like $1 billion to illegal immigrants, and we have people that have lost everything, and you give them $750. I mean, come on. It's heartbreaking, for those people. And from what I've heard, the FEMA response has been pretty bad. I mean, I've seen news reports where people are saying, "Where's FEMA? We haven't seen them." My friends that were at the Grove Park Inn, I think they did actually see FEMA coming in as they were leaving. It wasn't a large response, I don't think, but the really cool thing about this is the American people that have come together, like the locals and the people with helicopters. Like there was, I think, 7 helicopters and like a private group of guys who they did 300 evacuations from Sunday to Wednesday, which is incredible, and I think I saw like a report the day before that the National Guard had done like 112 or something before that. So we're seeing, citizens, we're seeing people like come together and just take it upon themselves, to help rescue people, people from Florida loading up, trailers of water and supplies and generators and diapers and formula. And so we're seeing a huge response from other states, which is heartwarming. I mean, it's been great.
Yeah, I mean, $750, like I said, it might as well be Monopoly money. Like, what the hell are you supposed to do with it? I know in Ian, same type of thing. It was like, I saw people with boats that are worth more than my house, that I don't even know how they got the boat through the storm, but the boat made it through the storm, however they did that. And I'm talking like $1 million, $2 million, $3 million boats just loaded up with diapers and water. And they got it out to Matlacha Island and Pine Island and Sanibel Island, and they were getting it to places that were cut off. And that was where the real value was. It was actually giving the manpower, saving people, obviously, construction companies, tradesmen, people participating to, help pull people out or clean up or put things back together and to deliver supplies out there, and to see wealthier people that probably don't want to load up their boat with a bunch of crap and supplies and scratch it up, without hesitation, did that. So, are you aware of any place to donate or any initiative to serve, in any way that you would recommend looking at? Because I know for me, when I was in Florida, some are better than others. I'll put it that way. You don't know where your money's going all the time. So are you aware of anything like that? If not, that's totally cool.
Yeah. So Florida, I do Captains for Clean Water. They're really good. I donated to them during Ian. They set up, trucks and trailers and stuff all over, the East Coast during that. I've, given them some money. I've donated water and supplies, and they're a pretty good, like really good organization in Florida. I'm sure you've heard of them. Mm-hmm. But for other stuff like this, I mean, I would rather give money to organizations like Save Our Allies. That's Tim Kennedy's. He's a part of that. I'm sure you've probably seen his social media posts. There you go.
He's right there.
Yeah.
Tim Kennedy's great, and that's a great book. And I think a lot of people read that book, and I don't know if you've read Scars and Stripes before. Highly recommend it. I think some people would think he's bragging, but that's not what he's trying to do in that book. And I totally recommend it.
Yeah. I look up to that dude, so much, but so, those are the ones that I would recommend, trying to get in touch with. I think Save Our Allies, they've got boots on the ground. You can actually, if you want to volunteer your time and services, if you're a medic or you've got, mental health, training, they're looking for all those types of people to,
is that Tim Kennedy's Save Our Allies?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Like I said, I'm a huge fan, and he's definitely a trustworthy guy in my opinion. So, I actually know somebody that's actually met him when they were in the Green Berets too. And it's just cool to know somebody through like a second degree of separation. You know what I mean? As opposed to just like a figure that you see on social media.
Yeah.
and he vouches for his character for sure. So that's what you're doing now. We did take up a lot of time to go through the Asheville thing. I would like to just highlight, because I think you get a good story. And maybe that's a good segue. Tim Kennedy, military. You started in the military, right? So that's what you did after school. Why'd you do that? Like, what was Aaron Moore like as a teenager that said, oh, Navy, that's the way I'm going?
Well, Aaron Moore as a teenager was, pretty much a shitbag. I mean, I didn't have, much drive for anything. I was just, wanting to party and, smoking pot and just, not really caring. I did know that I wanted to be, successful, whatever you call that. But, I grew up very modest. Some would say poor, but after high school, I just thought, I gotta get some schooling. So that's why I joined the Navy for the free college. My parents couldn't afford to send me to college. So that's the way you do it when you're poor. You just join the military and get schooling from them,
Listen, it's a path for sure. And I would never deter anybody from, not going into the military. But if you want to go to college and you want to get an education, it's definitely a good way to pay for it. And what I think a lot of people don't realize, maybe you didn't realize that at the time, but I've had people on the show where they actually take up a trade in the military, because there's infrastructure and there's bases that need to be set up, and there's people that need to use their hands to do things, right? It's not just about pulling a trigger, which I think a lot of people think the military is. There's a lot of effort that goes in there. So I've had two people on, actually. One was an engineer and one was in a trade. That literally their job was to set up infrastructure like power lines and things like that. So you were in the military, Navy, 4 years?
No, I did 2.5. I got injured and got out, and then moved I went back to Ohio for a while. It's obviously where I'm from, and just wanted to get out. So my cousin owned a small business in Florida, and so I came down to. The idea was to kind of work with him through that. Didn't really work out that way, and then I got a job as a porter, which for people who don't know is it's like not even a maintenance guy. It's like you're picking up dog crap and cigarette butts and pressure washing, and so that's how I got started with that.
I wasn't in the Navy and I didn't get hurt in the military, but that's how I started. I can't tell you how many cigarette butts I picked up outside of a mechanical sheet metal shop up in Boston for years, and how many toilets I scrubbed in construction bathrooms. I mean, porter is the word, and there's some money to be had there. I mean, I think the porta potty companies, they do all right, but there's some nasty shit up in there to be cleaning up. So when Aaron says that, Aaron's talking about starting at the bottom.
Yeah, I mean, when people move out, you don't realize how nasty some people live. And when you have to cut the carpet out and it's literally soaked with dog and pet urine, and it's dripping off the carpet as you're carrying it out the door, it's pretty bad. So that's how I started with that company. And then I eventually met the director of construction, and this is back in 2008. So, for people who don't know, Florida was hit really hard, with the recession in 2008. So they were finishing like a phase 2 of a townhouse community project. So there wasn't much construction going on. It was pretty dead around town. So I got the opportunity, I was asked, hey, I'm looking for a superintendent, do you want to do it? And I was like, yeah, sure. And he's like, have you ever, developed stuff before? I'm like, yeah, a little bit, here and there, of course, and so he just gave me the job. And
so let's not overlook what you just said. because I think it's important. So you were doing a shitty job, for lack of a better word, no pun intended, right? And then because you were doing it and you were working hard, and I'm sure you were seen as competent, otherwise you wouldn't have even have entertained it. Like if you were some lazy shitbag that didn't show up and was late all the time, a need was there. They were like, we need somebody. And you said, oh yeah, I could do it. I got the experience.
Yeah.
Whether or not you had the imposter syndrome or not. You were like,
Right.
absolutely. I think that there's something to be said there about having the confidence to take the next step and take on responsibility, whether you're ready for it or not. Rise to the occasion.
Yeah.
Jump in the deep end and swim. So that's awesome that you did that. So I know I just cut you off. So, continue.
No, it's okay. It's a good point. Like people should understand or learn how to seize an opportunity. I knew I didn't want to be a porter forever, and at the time when I got the ask, I actually had moved up to like a maintenance tech. I got my HVAC certification. The company paid for that. And then I was a maintenance supervisor. And then I got the ask, to get into the construction side. So I did that, and it was literally like probably 2 months in to the phase 2 build, where I'm looking at the construction schedule, and it basically says like, Aaron to take over, scheduling and the meetings or whatever. And I'm just like, all right, well, I guess I'm running the show now, and just became a sponge, to the industry. I was very young when I first started, and it can be difficult working with a lot of older guys, and you're the superintendent and you're in charge, and
Been there.
that dynamic is strange. So you kind of learn how to manage people, differently depending on who they are.
So can you talk about that? Like, did you feel imposter syndrome? In speaking with other people, a lot of people can feel imposter syndrome because they didn't go to college, or because they're younger, or because last week or a year ago I was scraping shit off carpets, and then I was tuning up HVAC, and now here I am running the show. Did you have imposter syndrome?
For sure. I mean, I still do. I mean, I get to fly in private jets, if I want to. I've flown in private jets for the past, I don't know, 8 years, 10 years or whatever. And it's crazy. Like I'm sitting in this jet thinking, I don't deserve to be here. Like, when are they going to find out that I don't, when are they going to figure it out? It happens, to this day, it still happens.
Do you overcome that in any way, or is it just keep pushing, keep going?
Yeah, you do. I mean, it takes time, I mean, I tell people who are getting into it, younger guys, like, for one, it's very stressful. You got to learn how to manage the stress and deal with that, and it takes years to develop, to get through it, like to manage it. And then as far as the imposter syndrome stuff goes, like, you'll meet people who are above you, and you'll have a conversation with them, and you'll think, how did that guy get there? Like, how did this dude get where he's at?
All the time.
And once you realize that nobody knows what they're doing, then I don't know, you get over it.
Well, listen, I work at a $10 billion a year plus company, and with my new endeavor, new job position I've taken, I've for the first time, I'm finding myself in a room where I'm the only person that's not a billionaire. I've been in rooms where I'm the only person that's not a C-suite person, right? A CEO, COO, CSO, whatever that is.
Yeah.
And I look around, and I'm like, my whole life, I've been looking up at this room and thinking like, oh man, the wizardry, the magic behind the curtain here. And now I'm here, and I'm like, this is it? This is what we're fucking talking about?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm still not there. I'm by far the lowest person on the totem pole in the room, but it's like, man, there's a lot of people up there that you aren't as smart as you'd think think they are. But, the other thing that I would say to that is there's cockiness and there's confidence. And the difference between cockiness and confidence is preparation. So if you're not working hard and you're not prepared and you're not studying, even with the lack of experience, but you're acting what some people would call confident, that's cockiness, right? Nobody likes cockiness. You get confidence by doing your homework, by asking the question, by trying without a doubt in your mind. You tried your hardest. That way nobody can challenge you. But the other way to get it is experience, which you alluded to that. It's when you spend a year and then 2 years and then 3 years and you start getting project after project after project under your belt, then you become more confident and more confident and more confident. And I think that's when the imposter syndrome kind of goes away.
Yeah.
The private jet thing, you may never get used to that, but that's cool. I had one opportunity to get on a private jet out of Miami, and it got canceled on me. So I was super disappointed. But I think it's going to happen in 2025. So I'll be there, man.
Yeah. I'm rooting for you, pal.
So you did that job as a superintendent and then eventually worked your way up to a PM. Like, how long did that take?
Pretty much during that first project. I took over the scheduling of the job, and then all the contracts were expired because that project specifically had just stalled like everything else, right? So all the contracts were expired, and the owner wanted to rebid everything out. So I learned on that project how to, write contracts, negotiate with subcontractors. And it was a little bit easier at that time because everybody was hungry. Everybody, needed the work, so I was able to shave like a couple $100,000 off of the build cost. And, the owner was thrilled obviously with that. So I kind of became, the guy at that time. And then,
we could all use a couple extra $100,000, right?
What's that?
What's a couple extra $100,000 amongst friends? We could all use a couple extra $100,000. So, and listen, that's a tough skill though, to have very little to no experience and step in that role. And, one of the things that I tell young people, aside from knowing how to build, the ability to communicate, the ability to sell, and another word for a sell would be to negotiate. The ability to be able to do that is so few and far between, especially with younger people today. That was 15, 20 years ago. The younger people today, it's something that they seriously lack in. So if you can develop that skill, again, you went from scraping poop to being a tech to getting an opportunity. And in his first opportunity, he was able to save a couple $100,000 for his owner. I can't think of a better way to shine to the most important people, right? So it's a good skill to have.
Yeah. And then, so from then on, it was just pretty much, project after project, and doing the same thing. So that company that I was at for almost 15 years, I worked my way up to where it was just me, my boss, and the owner, and then my boss, chipped in. You come out to the job sites and kind of check on things. But there was one project specifically that I wanted to do everything myself. And this is going to sound crazy, but I was the project manager. I was the job site superintendent. I processed all the billing. So all the pay applications, I processed all of that, set up the payables package for them to cut checks. I literally did everything. I told my boss, like, I don't want help. I want to do this all myself. I want to run this entire project, everything by myself. I will never do that again. It was very difficult and it was very stressful, but it was a successful project, and nobody can take that away from me. Now I can always say that, hey, there was this one project I did everything,
Well, one of the things, I think it's over my shoulder. Somewhere over my shoulder is Extreme Ownership from Jocko.
Oh yeah, I got that book too.
Yeah, so part of that is like knowing, and you know this in the military, know the 2 jobs up and 2 jobs down, right? And taking ownership of that. Well, you can say that because you've done the billing and you've pretty much done everybody's job, right? Yeah. So I think as stressful as that was, and as long as that may have taken, I'm sure it was hell for you, but I'm sure it makes you a better leader today. So I'm curious. You don't have to share this information if you don't want to, but through your career, what was the pay like as a porter, and then an HVAC tech, and then a super, and then a PM? And I'm curious to hear, working as an owner and developer, if you have any incentive plan.
So the pay as a porter, I can't remember what I got paid when I started. I think it was probably somewhere around like 12 or 13 bucks an hour or something,
Nice.
10, 12 bucks an hour. And then, I think superintendents were making like 16 or 17 an hour back then.
Wow.
I don't know what they make now. What's that?
In like 08, 09 in Florida. So that would have been like 34 grand a year. I can tell you right now, I had 2 years ago, I had supers in Florida, good ones, making 150.
Yeah.
So that's other ones making, 110, 100 in Florida. So it's just to show you how far the industry's come, especially in a state like Florida, which, I think has a reputation for low pay. But so that was as a super, and then you got to a PM, and where did it go from there?
Yeah. And then, so superintendent, I think I was making like around in the 60s, like, starting off. And then as I kind of moved up, it was around 85 to 100. And then, nice. now it's, I saw one of your videos where you were talking about, pay scale, for the construction industry. So now it's up at the top end of that pay scale.
Yeah, so that's awesome. And do you have, which is great. So if you want to know exactly what Aaron's talking about, go find that post, and you're gonna have to dig.
There you go.
Give me some more engagement. But that's base. So I'm curious, do you have any sort of incentive plans out there? Because I feel like I hear more and more incentive plans coming, and I feel like, especially if you're on the development side, that might be there. There's a 401k plan you can do, and I think, they'll match, your 401k stuff, but, that's pretty much it at this company. I mean, obviously you have your other benefits, your medical and, health benefits and stuff like that is really good, but, sure.
Then there's bonuses, there's bonus structures. So, your salary, and then you've got, you can make on a, let's say 268 unit project, an additional, 35, 40 grand.
That's what I was getting at. I was getting at a bonus, like if you knock it out of the park on a project, you save money. I mean, so that's 35, 40 grand, the average American makes 60 grand. So on the, as a cherry on top, you could have half of the average American salary or even more, working on that side. So that's great. And I mean, this is all in 16 years. You've been able to do this, right? So you're still in your 30s, right?
Yep. 38.
Yeah. So you're 38 years old, no college education, an injured sailor from the Navy who came out and was cleaning up job sites, picking up cigarette butts and ripping up poopy carpet. And you've been able to get to the top end of the pay scale, not just for construction. If you look at that pay scale, that would actually put him in the top 5% of all Americans. And I think for 24-year-olds to 38-year-olds, that would put you in the top 1 or 2%. So not too bad for a kid that was partying too much and didn't know what the hell he wanted to do. To quote Aaron himself, a teenage shitbag.
Yeah. Not bad. Not bad.
So
Good.
Go for it. All you.
I tell kids all the time, I have friends that have kids that are, getting out of high school. They're looking at colleges. They're trying to figure out what they want to do. They have no idea, I have friends that have kids that have gone through college and just got out of college and aren't using their degrees. I mean, it happens so often, more often than not, I think. So I tell everybody, like, learn a trade. You want to own a business, that's great. Learn a trade first, and then, get a business management degree, learn how to start that business and run it and be successful that way. There's so much money to be made in the construction industry. I mean, laborers are walking around making 25 bucks an hour, just to be a laborer. So get a job as a laborer for a company, learn that trade, learn that skill, get some experience, and then make some money. It's that simple.
Yeah, labor. When he says labor, he means he was a porter. This would be like maybe a step up from that. Maybe some porter activities included in that, but no particular, like when you talk general labor, no particular skill. Not a carpenter, not an electrician, not a plumber. Like, move this pile of rocks over there. That's what a lot of laborers are making right now. You know what? I think that's great advice, and I think that's more advice that people need to hear, especially with, you hear all these statistics about, you know, people realizing that college may not be for them, and they're wondering how to make one of the most searched things, job related search things on YouTube and Google, is how to make 100K without going to college. And I think that's exactly it. I think that's exactly the way to do it. Somebody asked me the other day how to get into the welding trade, and it's like, go sign up for a union apprenticeship, go sign up for a trade school. Oftentimes companies will subsidize that, so you can do it for free, or like in the state of Florida, that's subsidized, that's free. All trade schools free, right?
Yep.
For the people that go.
Yep.
And then if you can't, while you're waiting, go call companies just like you did, whether it's a porter, a truck driver, a van driver, you know, whatever it may be, somebody that just cleans up the shop. Go do that, because you never know what opportunity can present itself, right? They then paid for you to be an HVAC tech, and then lo and behold, boom, you happen to be there, and you got a reputation of somebody competent in the work that works hard. You're in the office that quick. You know what I mean? And now look at you, for the last 10 plus years, you're flying on friggin' private jets, making, you know, top 5% in the country, all without a college education. So I think that's great advice. Do you have any other advice, whether it be maybe for, you know, people coming out of the military, maybe the things that they deal with, or just any young people in general that may have gone through something that you've gone through?
Well, I'm actually going to a retirement party tonight for a friend of mine who just got out of the Marine Corps. So I know those lifers, those guys who have been in for 20 years, some of them struggle with what to do next. You know, they're used to the structure, and they're used to being told where they're going to be, when they're going to be there. You know, so getting back to civilian life can be challenging for some. But, you know, I don't really know. You know, I wasn't in for that long, so I can't really offer advice to, you know, to those guys. You know.
Yeah, that was kind of a vague question. But I think most people that I know would be eager to jump at the opportunity to hire somebody out of the military, especially if they've been there for that long. You know, I think they get preference. I think that if even at that age they can do that, or they want to make a jump into learning a trade or something like that, same thing. I'm talking to more and more trade schools who have people in trade schools in their late 30s, 40s, and even 50s. And what's really interesting that I don't think a lot of people know is DEI in construction. So people hear DEI and they think women and minorities, which is what it is, right? But what also is encompassed in that is veterans. So if you've come out, and a lot of the time, a lot of veterans have a lot of money, or they have a little bit of money to play with. If you can get that education and you can start your own business, many companies and municipalities, especially if it's a public project or a private project, but for a bank, almost every single financial institution requires a certain amount of contractors to be DWEIB, which would be, you know, diversity, women, you know, ethnic something, basically anybody that's not a straight white man to own a company. But veterans are included in that. So there are companies out there that will hire veteran-owned companies and pay more for them to run their work, and they're required to do that. GCs are required to hire people like that, right? And I'm going to have a post on this soon, but I think it's something that a lot of veterans should be aware of. And I think a lot of veterans that I know personally, they do really well when they start their own companies, and they don't go big, but they keep it very small, almost to a team of like 3 to 6. I don't know if there's a parallel or correlation there, but they do very well in small contracting companies, whether it's residential or commercial. So I think it's a good way to go. I do have a course coming out not because I want to make money on it, but because I want to help people and give like cheap education for people to be able to do things like that on project management. And it'll walk you through everything from contract types to how to set up a job site to how to build a schedule to managing budgets and coordinating certain trades, all those types of things. So definitely, look for that, because I think it can help some people. So Aaron, anything else that you were hoping that we touch on before we wrap it up here? We're almost coming up on time.
No, I think we pretty much, covered it. I mean, one thing I would say to young people who are listening to this or seeing this or whatever, listen to this guy. He knows what he's talking about. If you're following his channel, there's a reason for it. Listen to him and, just learn a skill and get experience. That's what I would say. Learn a skill, get experience, and you'll be fine.
It's really hard for me sometimes. I appreciate what you just said. It's really hard for me to read my DMs and my comments sometimes with people telling me I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. I'm like, dude, trust me, I know what I'm fucking talking about. So I appreciate that. So Aaron, can anybody follow you or reach out to you if they align or are looking for advice?
Absolutely. Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at this Aaron person. I used to be this Aaron guy, but I forgot that password. Had to start something different. So make a new Instagram. But I'm at this Aaron person.
That's good. Gender neutral. Good work.
Yeah. Right.
Good job. So hey, reach out to him. Obviously, he's got a great story. I definitely want to keep in touch with you to hear about how things are going on that job site. It's might even be a blessing that the job site wasn't further along. So maybe if it got delayed, sometimes God throws you down on the sidewalk to keep you from getting hit by a bus. So I don't know if you had any delays in permitting or zoning or anything like that. But it might've been a blessing. So did you?
What's that?
Did you have any delays? No. Did you have any delays in the beginning of the project that pushed the start?
No, actually, we were 2 months ahead of schedule. So, I mean,
oh, really?
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. It sucks. We're going to lose that momentum. We'll never get it back. But we're fortunate, man. We are, like I said, we had footers poured on 3 buildings. We were very fortunate. I'm not complaining. I feel very lucky. A lot of people, lost everything that they own. So I can't be angry at, losing some time, on a schedule. So.
Yeah. And I mean, they're going to need the housing. So they're going to need you to get that project going.
Yeah.
So anyway, everybody, I appreciate you for hopping on and sticking through this and listening. Again, Construction Mentor Podcast. You can check it out on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. I think if you just type in the Construction Mentor Podcast or the Construction Mentor at this point, it'll pop up. And you can check me out on TikTok, Instagram. And I appreciate everybody. And I'll catch you next time. Thanks.